In this video we're going to discuss the different deployment options available for TrackEd. TrackEd is a product built by Intratec Pty Ltd and it's based on the Filemaker platform. And before we get into the deployment options, it's important to discuss what Filemaker is and the different versions available, how it works. So Filemaker is an Apple subsidiary and they build a portfolio of products called Filemaker Pro, Filemaker Go, Filemaker Server and Filemaker WebDirect. And all of these products work together on different platforms. So Filemaker Pro is available for PCs and for Mac, so it's cross-platform. Filemaker Go is designed for iOS devices, so iPhones and iPads. Filemaker Server is a dedicated hosting tool, and Filemaker WebDirect is based on server broadcasting it for web browser access. So these are the four different types of Filemaker products that TrackEd can run from. With each TrackEd purchase we include one version of Filemaker Pro. Now Filemaker Pro is what's needed to run TrackEd from a PC. Now it can run either TrackEd Junior or TrackEd Senior or any other TrackEd products that come out into the future, but it's tied to each PC. And that PC license is transferable between PCs when you have a staff member leave or something like that. But that is the simplest method to deploy TrackEd, to have it just on a single PC, potentially saved or backed up to a network drive, but really it's a standalone device. Now we have some schools that will host, they'll put the TrackEd application folder on their network drive, and then they'll have a variety of Filemaker Pros that will access that directly. So using this method, Filemaker Pro, the first Filemaker Pro to open the database will actually lock that database so that the other Filemaker Pros can't get in at that exact same time. So this deployment method is useful when you have a very small team. You don't need to access it at exactly the same time, and it just gives you that ability to share it amongst a multiple number of users. Now, a few variations on this particular model. It is possible to have a single user that controls a master copy of TrackEd. They do all of the imports and they have the most current version with them all the time on their own PC. Now every now and then they could make a backup copy of that TrackEd file and they could store it on a network drive that's accessible to other users also running Filemaker Pro. So in this way it essentially becomes a read-only version on the network drive, but allows people to access the most up-to-date information, run any of the reports they want in real time. So taking that a step further, if your school has multiple users who need access to it at exactly the same time, more than one user who needs to do the importing, more than one user who needs to edit and update information, then it's probably time to look at Filemaker Server as a dedicated host. So Filemaker Server enables you to install Filemaker on a server to host that product on your whole network for your school, and to have potentially an unlimited number of users accessing TrackEd through Filemaker Server. So if you've got teams of probably 3 or more people who need access to it at once, all at the same time, the Filemaker Server is probably a good option. Now this is probably a recommended configuration for a big school, is to have Filemaker Server as the host and all of the users of TrackEd using Filemaker Pro. Filemaker Pro enables people to have full access to TrackEd, all of its capabilities, the ability to save neat PDF files, the ability to send emails as part of the script, the ability to import new data, to export data as Excel, all sorts of things. So that's really our recommended model. It also avoids having to turn on web publishing, which can impact on a few services within the Aid Queensland school networks. So our next slide here shows that Filemaker Server can actually broadcast to Filemaker Pro and Filemaker Go and WebDirect. The first two we do recommend, they work quite well. So Filemaker Go will work on iPads, so that can be broadcast throughout a school. WebDirect is a web browser based technology, and these two options here require concurrent connections. So with Filemaker WebDirect there are a few limitations. It does run in a browser, which is great. You don't need to install anything. but it does mean that it works like a browser, so you can't save a neat PDF You can't export information, you can't import new data into TrackEd, so you still need your FileMaker Pro users to do this. So WebDirect is useful in certain situations where you have a large, say, teacher base and you want to have the majority of people to be able to have access to TrackEd. You can buy enough concurrent licenses so that basically that's any number of users at any period of time. So you could buy, say, 5 concurrent users for maybe 20 users who will need it at different times, just as long as there's a maximum of 5 at any one time. And this is in addition to any FileMaker Pro users that you have who will be using it with FileMaker Pro from a PC. FileMaker Pro will be installed there and licensed, so the concurrent licenses are separate. So just so you understand the different concepts there and what we're trying to do. But really, our dedicated FileMaker server option and multiple FileMaker Pro users is our preferred method for a large school. So why are we going about all of this? Really, as schools start with TrackEd, they generally start with a single FileMaker Pro installation. Maybe they'll transition to multiple PCs accessing it off a network drive. Potentially what we find is people want more and more staff to have access to TrackEd, and in that case that's why we're heading towards server as our sort of preferred option for larger deployments. But really what we're looking at here is enabling lots of people to have access to the data. Now this is just an example data control, and it's based around a senior schooling HOD being the control center for information. Now this will vary for different schools, for different staff, for different teams, but this is just an example of how the information might flow around within a school environment. So the senior schooling HOD in this example would be the control center. They would do the importing of new data. They'd make sure that TrackEd is up to date. And from there, the principal would be able to would be sent reports via email, but they'd also be able to get into the TrackEd system and have a helicopter view, really see what's going on. This would be the same with the DPs. There might be a report schedule that your school might set up, that they might send certain reports on a certain schedule, so that they're getting that live information, on a set routine. But they'd also be able to get in there and have a look around with that helicopter view. The senior schooling HOD would also send potentially action plans, the at-risk email to the curriculum HODs, and curriculum HODs might be able to send action plans back to the senior schooling HOD. This could be with our at-risk imports, basically through that system. We've also got our coaches here. So the coaches would receive reports and profiles via email. So the profiles might be compiled, all of the data might be checked to make sure it's correct. We've put in the latest OP estimates, we've put in the latest QCE data. And at that point, that might actually just get emailed as a list of profiles to each of the coaches. Those coaches can print them out, have those coaching sections. They can actually give the students a copy of each of their profiles, and then the coach would send back the coaching notes via Excel. Now, the other one we've included in this graph is the guidance officer, and in this case as well, they're getting reports and profile emails sent out to them. But they're also having that live view, so they for QTAC and subject changes and special considerations, they'll be able to see into the live TrackEd data. So this model, in a larger school sort of context with all of those people involved, it really does probably require the TrackEd system to be hosted on server and to have multiple FileMaker Pro licenses for that to work well. Anyway, if you've got more questions about the deployment options, we're more than happy to help. We have a detailed list of the different deployment options, what the ramifications are of each of the options, costings, all of those sorts of things. You can contact us, and we hope to make this available and more useful for schools going forward.